What's up everybody, my name's Big Cam and welcome back to another 1/6 scale Hot Toys DC figure unboxing. I normally stick to my Marvel, but I just did a DC figure yesterday, so if you haven't gone and seen that, go check out the Bank Robber 2.0 Joker. But today we have the Dark Knight Trilogy Batman from, I believe, Batman Begins. It doesn't necessarily say, it just says the Dark Knight Trilogy, but I believe this is the Batman Begins version. It says the Dark Knight Trilogy on the side, DC down the bottom, legal information around the back. Kind of has this black and gold-ish color to it, kind of like the belt color on the bat suit. You know, the only accent that this bat suit has, because other than that it's all black, right? But yeah, decent little, this is the Batman 1, you know, Batman Begins cover with Christian Bale swooping down with a bunch of different bats flying all around. I remember this cover on like the DVD cover of the disc, you know, when you bought it back in the day. But let's slide off this cover. It does say it is a Sideshow exclusive, but it says Hot Toys down in the corner, so movie masterpiece. So I believe this is a Hot Toys exclusive through Sideshow. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section below, but let's slide off this cover and see what this figure's looking like. Ooh, okay, we got the Batman in the center, we got a Christian Bale head sculpt. It looks like we get like the vest and like the climbing gear like he has at the very beginning of that movie before he really gets the cape and goes full Batman. You can kind of faintly see the Batman on the back there. I don't know if you guys can pick that up, but it's like he's climbing out of the Batmobile. It's very faint though, even in real life, so I can only imagine if the camera's struggling to pick it up, but you can kind of see it there as I move with the light. You know, it's got like this Christian Bale's Batman stepping out of the Batmobile. There is a 1/6 scale Batmobile in Bat Pod that I was thinking about getting for this figure, but then I was like, maybe the Batmobile but not the Bat Pod, because he doesn't use that until the end of like Dark Knight and then into the Dark Knight Rises. So maybe that figure I'll have to get the Bat Pod for, you know, the Bat motorcycle. But let's slide this figure out of the box and take a closer look. So there's the harness with the belt and a little ski mask that we'll try at some point on this figure, but let's pop off the top of this clamshell. Oh boy. So lots of plastic protecting that black, almost looks leathery outfits, rubbery, leathery, same type of shit, whatever. But yeah, picking up this Batman for the first time, taking a closer look. The cape sliding out the back. Ooh. Pop off the plastic. Oh my. Oh my indeed. Wow, it's so funny handling this figure because I was just taking off all the plastic and stuff and this foot just like popped off so easily, and it doesn't feel nearly as secure as the other one. So I'm like, what is the deal with this foot? Like, I don't know. But yeah, the left foot for some reason is super loose, and I'm not sure what I should do to get it tighter in there. But yeah, it feels like his left ankle is like broken. That's not good, you know, like, look, it just free floats where the other one's like, you know, it's pretty sturdy. I don't know what I did, but yeah, this is definitely, it feels like an older figure, but you know, I purchased this off of the Sideshow website, so either people weren't buying this and this is an older figure, or this is a newer figure and they were just maybe re-releasing it for people like me. It did say Sideshow edition on the front, so maybe this is a Sideshow Batman rather than a Hot Toys. Comment below if you know more information about that. But the cape, the cowl does look pretty good, does look movie accurate to the first film, you know, like the way that that cowl looks on the back there. But like, also like the first film, this Batman can't move his head nearly at all. It does look like there's a spot on his belt for the batarangs, but we'll take a closer look at all these in a second when we take a even closer up close and personal look at this figure. But you know, the bat chest, you know, looks large, but then you touch it, it's just like squishy rubber. So it's like, okay, is this figure thick or just looks like it's thick? The legs feel alright, but the chest feels like very, like there's a lot of air underneath there for some reason. And yeah, because we have the swap out vest and belt in like the climbing gear, I'm pretty sure the head sculpt comes off, the cape comes off, the belt comes off, and you're able to put on this entire other secondary outfit, which I do like that it comes with, because maybe I'll have to rep the figure like that, because as this Batman standing here in front of me, sure, it does look like Christian Bale, you know, the head sculpt looks fine, although he is wearing a bat cowl, so it doesn't really look like Christian Bale, considering there is a Christian Bale head sculpt that comes with this figure, so we'll take a closer look at that when we're looking at the head sculpts. But I don't know, just like my first impressions on this, as like my first Batman I'm taking out of the box, this is how I remember my first Batman, right? Like Christian Bale's Batman Begins. And then, you know, obviously now that I'm older, I know of, you know, the Val Kilmer, you know, the Clooney, and then the real OG Michael Keaton Batman. Now that's like the OG original Batman. But for my generation on kids growing up, this was my first Batman. And then it wasn't until Dark Knight and then The Dark Knight Rises that I fell in love with this character, fell in love with the Joker, fell in love with Christopher Nolan's filmmaking. You know, like, this movie did a lot for me growing up as a kid in this trilogy of the Dark Knight trilogy and then Christian Bale's Batman. I still consider one of the best, if not the best, until we get Robert Pattinson's second Batman, because that story that Matt Reeves is writing is unbelievable. And I do have the Robert Pattinson Batman that I've been waiting to unbox, so maybe in the upcoming weeks we'll do that. And comment below if you want to see a DC figure unbox next or a Marvel figure unbox, and that will be for next weekend. But this Sunday's unboxing is the Batman Begins Batman, and let's pull everything that he comes with out of the box and all of his accessories, and then I'll show you guys what the Batman 1/6 scale Dark Knight Trilogy Batman Sideshow edition comes with. Yeah, we'll talk about it, and then we'll get him into some poses and then toss him on the shelf and see what he's looking like next to another DC figure. Oh, right, we got Batman from Batman Begins laid out in front of us. You can see his kind of League of Shadows gauntlets on his forearms on either side. He comes with 2 fists. He does come with 2 other hands for either side. One is kind of a grabbing fist, and, you know, that's probably for just grabbing a gun, a smoke bomb, something. Maybe it's for grabbing or throwing this little smoke bomb device, which you guys may recognize from the movie. I'm not sure if he uses it in The Dark Knight, but he certainly uses it at some point. You know, like he gives it to like the Robin of that movie in the second or third movie, and he goes, "You think you got something bigger than that little bomb?" You know, and then he pulls out the big giant ship, the bat wing, if you would. It blows a hole. But yeah, nice little bomb there. And then the other hand is maybe not such a grabbing hand, but maybe a throwing of like the Batarang. You can see the Batarangs on his belt there. That was like the only thing I threw on him. You can see the climbing gear that's on like a little piece of cardboard right now, but just kind of showing you that, you know, this is the middle section, and then these clips on the outside are like his leg straps, and then I believe they all connect to each other on the back side, you know, so those go around his legs. But just a nice little piece of cardboard that they have for you to be able to hold it if you don't want to use it. I believe I will toss this on the figure at least once to see how it looks, as well as his little derpy ski mask, but that is kind of how it looks in the movie. And the Christian Bale head sculpt, a damn near perfect Christian Bale head sculpt. The only thing I would say that would make this thing more perfect is if they had his little like eye thing that he has on like the inside of his right eye, which, you know, maybe they kind of do, but not quite. But maybe a little bit they do. They tried to get it in there. But yeah, no, he's got like a little cyst thing on the inside of his eye, but he's, you know, never gotten rid of it. And, you know, other than that, almost every angle, I don't necessarily see Christian Bale, but I certainly see his Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I do see Christian Bale, though, as well. Definitely a younger version. But yeah, he looks good, and I will have to try out that head sculpt on this figure, as well as the swap out utility belt. But the figure himself, he looks pretty damn good standing there in front of me with just his cape flowing down the side. I am a little bit bummed that his black cape seems to pick up every little bit of dirt. You can see a little white speck on his cape there. And it's like, I just put this thing down on the table. Where's this white stuff coming from? But like, you know, just packaging, styrofoam, that type of thing. It's all over the place in this room. So it's picking up the tiniest little specks that you can't even find anywhere. And of course I'm seeing it, but you know, who knows, maybe you guys don't. But that one little white speck right there is bothering me. So up close and personal on this Batman face sculpt, you can see the eyes with the black makeup around the eyes, maybe a little bit of paint damage on that nose there, just a little bit of white, you know, and the black paint scuff. But that's not the biggest deal in the world to me. You know, you can't even necessarily show it or see it in certain lights. Maybe it's just the light hitting the edge there just from direct on. But, you know, not a whole lot of articulation for the head, much like the suit had in real life. You know, he had to literally make a different suit design for the second movie so that he could back out of the driveway easier, you know, and it was like a whole thing in the story of the movie. Like, it's just funny. But you see the Bat logo on his chest there, the, you know, black outfit, and he like spray paints this body armor and then puts the Bat logo there. You know, I really always dug the way that the actual like body armor of the suit looks, although on this it feels like rubbery and, you know, what is that? What is that? You know, I don't know. You know, why is the Batarang falling out? But, you know, nice crispy little Batarang. Those can go right there. I'm not sure if that's the spot they're supposed to be in, but, you know, in the movie, I remember these things folding up and getting tucked into this spot, but I don't know. I guess that's the spot it's going to be in. Like I was saying, you got the one boot that's like, you know, definitely, you know, split, but like attached with this thing. And I don't know if I just screwed it when I put this back on and I shoved this boot on maybe a little too far. And now it's like, you know, loosey-goosey ankle. I don't know. That might be my fault. But let's try another one of these Batman mouth options. Pops out fairly easily, and then you can just pop that in there. Now, this does look kind of goofy, right? I think it is sitting there just fine. And I vaguely do remember him making this face. You know, he's kind of like, where are the drugs going? Swear to me. But doesn't that face on this Batman just kind of remind you of like the College Humor Batman, like the Pete Holmes bad Batman sketches? Where are the drugs going? You know, like that's what that face reminds me of there. Now that one to me reminds me more of Christian Bale. Like he does make that facial expression multiple times throughout the film. And, you know, he's kind of like, you know, like, you know, grunting a little bit, but like not opening gritting his teeth. You know, he's about to throw a punch maybe. You know, there's like a vague scene. I remember him up on the back of like a train car or something. And he's like, you know, got the arm up and he's like, you know, like, I don't know. Maybe I got to rewatch that movie. When's the last time you watched Batman Begins? Been a while for me. I might have to go check that out again, see if I can't get me a couple different pose ideas for this Batman. But yeah, let's try a couple of different options out on him and try this Christian Bale climbing gear in the Christian Bale head sculpt. Let's try that on this figure and try a couple of different pose options on him. And then we'll toss him on the shelf and see what he's looking like next to a Joker figure. Forgot to take a look at the base it comes with. You can see Batman up front there. It is the Batman Begins figure. You can tell from the color scheme, the logo, the little bats flying in the background kind of matches the cover of the box. The little head down silhouette of Batman, yeah. And then the waist or crotch grabber is very, very stretched out, but that's kind of how it was like when it came. But I don't know if that's supposed to be like that or not, but you know, we'll make it work. And yeah, just wanted to take a quick look at this Dark Knight Batman Begins display base. Batman Begins on the bottom, you know, 2022 Hot Toys Limited, all rights reserved. So this was a 2022 figure. Interesting. And it's still available on the website in 2025. I was able to grab it on one of those daily deal days. So those are the best ways I feel to grab figures, especially here in the States. You know, there's some aftermarket options on Amazon or eBay, and sometimes those can get a bit pricey. Sometimes you can find like pre-owned ones for cheaper. But my best way to find, you know, figures has been sideshow.com on the daily deals, you know, the Hot Toys daily deals. Sometimes they have them on for 20% off, or, you know, just some really nice deals that you're like, hey, I wouldn't mind grabbing that figure for the full price, but if it's going to be 20% off, I might as well grab it today when it's on a discount, you know. And that's the type of deals I'd be trying to get, or I'd be trying to go to like my local comic book shops or something like that and get figures that maybe are retired, like that Joker back there, or like that Captain America. You know, there's certain figures that you just can't buy anymore unless you stumble across them out in the wild, or you want to pay an exorbitant price on eBay or one of those sites, you know. So, you know, definitely do your research before you try and buy stuff, and, you know, look into the stuff that you want before just jumping into making the first decision possible. You know, like some people just search Batman Hot Toys and click on the first option and buy that one. It's like, no, there's tons of options out there. You got to really dive into how many different of these figures there are. And even though like some of the figures have regular versions, deluxe versions, collector's edition versions, and they come with different stuff. So watch some other YouTube breakdowns and unboxing videos of everything that these figures come with to decide what you really want before jumping into the collection yourself. But me personally, I'm eventually going to be getting all of the Batman and have them all together, and have all the Batmans from Christopher Nolan's films, all the Michael Keaton Batmans. I'll have Robert Pattinson's Batman. I don't know if I'll get Batman Forever or George Clooney's Batman, but those might be the only ones I don't get. But as far as like the mainstream Michael Keaton and the Christian Bale Batmans, I will be getting them. All right, we got Batman on the turntable here going around, and he is a bit limited. He's not the most posable figure, and I'm not the best poser to begin with, so bear with me here. But he is got his fists up in kind of a fight ready pose, and then the next one he's kind of got his hands relaxed down by his side as if he was just chilling, just standing there having a conversation maybe with Jim Gordon. Then the third pose, he's throwing a batarang. The fourth pose, Christian Bale's head sculpt is on him while he's holding a grenade, and Christian Bale still has the Batman suit on with the head sculpt of the Bruce Wayne head sculpt. And then I tried the full Bruce Wayne climbing gear holding his ski mask. And then I do have a clip that will come right after this of trying on the ski mask on the Bruce Wayne figure, and it didn't work quite well. And then we have my sixth and final pose here, and probably the way I will be repping him on my shelf. And he's just kind of got an arm up, the cape, he's got a little bit of a stance, not too crazy. You can't get him in too crazy of a stance anyways, just with how this figure's made. But, you know, he's got his batarang and he's ready to throw it, and he's taking aim. And yeah, not a bad figure. I'm glad I got this Batman Begins figure. This will be the last Batman Begins figure I get. You know, if I'm to get another Batman of Christian Bale, it will be the Dark Knight or the Dark Knight Rises. In this version will be the one and done. I do like that it comes with the climbing gear. I wish it looked a little better on him. I think it just looks a lot better with the cowl and, you know, with the accessories, the utility belt, the cape, the cowl. You know, it just looks a lot better to have the full Batman look rather than the half Batman, you know, making his way to Batman. But hey, if you wanted to get two of these figures and rep one as the Batman Begins suit and one as the Bruce Wayne climbing gear, you could. That would be up to you, you know. But let's take a look at what that Christian Bale with the ski mask looks like before we toss this bad boy on the shelf. Yeah, I don't think the ski mask is supposed to go on this head sculpt. I did try, but yeah, it doesn't quite line up with his mouth and his eye holes, and if you try and get it to, it doesn't quite work. So yeah, we're just gonna rep it with the Christian Bale, and I'll put this in his hand. But yeah, not quite a working beanie, ski mask, whatever you want to call it. But the whole harness looks pretty decent on it, and it does cover up these holes where the bat suit would go, you know what I mean? So it does strap on quite nicely and it looks good. I don't think I will be repping it in any crazy pose or, you know, nothing too crazy. You know, it just doesn't seem like a suit that's going to last very long. Just putting up his arms in like a fight pose a couple of times. You can see the wrinkling in the rubber right there. I mean, it was kind of like that when I got it, but it doesn't seem like it would last very long if I left it in a crazy dynamic pose for very long. So just be wary about that when posing this figure if you are getting it yourself. But let's toss the bat cowl back on this figure in the cape and see what he's going to be looking like on the shelf. All right, so now I was able to get the Batmobile. Now this isn't the 1/6 scale Batmobile that would be a Hot Toys Batmobile that does exist. This is the Lego version of the tumbler, but I had it down here with the other Batmobile, but I kind of like the way this looks better with the Batmobile and the Batwing, both from the same movie, with the Batman head helmet build with a little tiny bit of the Batman movie Lego sets, which is the entirety of my DC Lego set. So I didn't want to have one thing not in this room, and still able to get them on the shelves together. Eventually I'll have to move this once I get more DC figures, but for the time being, these two DC figures are going to be sitting with the Lego tumbler. But I really like the way this Batman's looking, that Joker next to him. Now, granted, not from the same movie, but the same trilogy. Batman Begins, Batman the Dark Knight, and yeah, and kind of technically this suit is like the very, very, very beginning of this movie. Right after he takes that bus and drives out of the bank, we see him in this suit in that bank for like half a second, right? I might be confused, but I'm pretty sure he's in this suit when he tells, like, Gordon, like, he found the unmarked bills, he's a Joker, he can wait, or whatever, and then he disappears, and he goes, yeah, he does that all the time. You know, like, I really got to go back and watch those movies. I really love the Dark Knight trilogy so much, but if you guys didn't see the Joker 2.0 bank robber version figure unboxing, that came out yesterday, so go check out that one if you haven't, and stay tuned for some more Hot Toys unboxings coming in the future. And the best way to support the channel is by liking this video, commenting down below if you haven't, subscribing if you haven't already. About 98% of viewers are not subscribed, so please, it's free. Even if it's an email address, that's free as well. So please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, supporting the channel, hitting that bell so you don't miss future Hot Toys unboxings and you get the notifications when that video drops and comes out. Once again, my name is Big Cam. My social media links for my other channels and my other social medias are down in the description below. Go check out those for me. And I appreciate everybody that is stuck around this far in the video. I highly appreciate you. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and sticking around. Once again, my name is Big Cam, and I will see you beautiful people in the next video. Peace.